Have you ever noticed that the harder you try to make life work, the more resistance you seem to encounter, as if something invisible tightens the moment you push too much, turning simple situations into constant struggles that drain your energy before the day even begins? In modern life, effort is praised, control is rewarded, and tension quietly becomes normal, yet beneath that constant pressure there is a growing feeling that something is off, that despite all the planning and pushing, peace keeps slipping just out of reach. You try to stay ahead of problems, anticipate outcomes, manage emotions, and control results, but the mind never truly rests, and the body carries a subtle weight that never fully disappears. Even moments meant to feel successful often arrive mixed with exhaustion, as if the cost of getting there was higher than expected, leaving little space for ease or satisfaction. This quiet frustration is not a personal failure, but a signal that the way we've learned to move through life may be out of alignment with its natural flow. Many people feel this tension without knowing how to name it, sensing that effort alone doesn't guarantee harmony, and that trying harder sometimes creates the very resistance they are trying to escape. There is a constant feeling of swimming against something unseen, where progress requires force instead of cooperation, and where rest feels undeserved rather than natural. This pressure shows up everywhere, in work, relationships, decisions, and even in moments of silence when the mind refuses to slow down. Yet deep down, there is an intuition that life was not meant to feel like an endless uphill climb. That intuition is where a different understanding begins. What if the struggle is not caused by a lack of discipline, ambition, or strength, but by an excess of force applied in the wrong direction? What if life is not asking for more effort, but for better alignment? This idea alone can soften the body and quiet the mind, creating a small opening where something ancient and deeply relevant can enter. Not as a rule, not as a command, but as a gentle reminder. That reminder is found in the Taoist principle known as Wu Wei. Taoism begins with observation rather than instruction, looking closely at how nature moves, changes, and resolves itself without unnecessary struggle or excessive effort. Rivers flow around obstacles instead of fighting them, seasons arrive without being forced, and growth unfolds at its own pace, guided by timing rather than urgency. From this quiet observation emerged a philosophy that values harmony over domination and alignment over control. At the center of this understanding is the Tao, often described as the natural way or underlying flow of life itself. Wu Wei arises directly from this relationship with the Tao. Wu Wei is often translated as effortless action, yet this phrase can be misleading if taken at face value, because it does not suggest doing nothing or avoiding responsibility. Instead, it points to action that emerges without inner conflict, without tension, and without the constant need to force outcomes. It is the difference between movement that feels strained and movement that feels natural. Between action driven by fear and action guided by awareness. Wu Wei describes the quality of how something is done, not whether it is done. In Taoism, life is not something to be conquered or controlled, but something to be understood and moved with, much like learning the rhythm of a current instead of exhausting yourself by fighting it. Wu Wei invites a shift from domination to cooperation, from pressure to presence, from constant striving to intelligent responsiveness. This shift does not require withdrawing from the world or abandoning goals. It simply changes the way energy is used. And that change has profound effects. Rather than demanding constant effort, Wu Wei encourages sensitivity to timing, context, and internal signals that are often ignored in a culture obsessed with productivity. It suggests that clarity comes not from pushing harder, but from listening more closely. That effective action often arises from stillness, not stress. And that life, when met with awareness, tends to organize itself more naturally than we expect. This is the foundation of Taoism applied to modern life. Modern culture often teaches that success is proportional to effort, that the more you struggle, the more valuable the result, and that ease is something to be earned only after exhaustion. From a young age, people learn to associate worth with productivity, tension with responsibility, and rest with guilt. This belief system creates a constant background pressure that rarely turns off. Even moments of stillness can feel uncomfortable, as if something important is being neglected. Over time, this mindset reshapes the nervous system. When struggle becomes the default mode, the body adapts by staying alert, the mind becomes restless, and emotional balance becomes harder to maintain. Anxiety is normalized, burnout is common, and exhaustion is often worn as a badge of honor. Yet beneath this constant activity, there is a quiet disconnection from natural rhythms. Sleep loses depth, focus becomes fragmented, and joy feels conditional. Wu Wei directly challenges this pattern, not aggressively, but gently. Rather than glorifying effort, Taoism questions unnecessary strain, asking whether the struggle itself is productive or simply habitual. It invites reflection on how much energy is being wasted through resistance, overthinking, and control. This questioning is not about abandoning responsibility, but about refining it. It separates meaningful action from compulsive effort. And in doing so, it restores balance. When everything requires force, life becomes heavy, even when nothing is technically wrong. Simple decisions feel overwhelming, and progress feels expensive. Wu Wei offers an alternative lens, suggesting that effectiveness does not require constant pressure, that ease and precision often coexist, and that harmony is not the opposite of achievement, but its natural companion. Wu Wei does not mean passivity, indifference, or withdrawal from life's responsibilities, and it certainly does not encourage avoidance or apathy. It describes a state of action that is free from internal friction, where movement arises naturally from understanding the situation rather than reacting impulsively to it. This kind of action feels calm, focused, and appropriate, even when it requires effort. The key difference lies in the absence of struggle against reality. Wu Wei aligns action with what is already unfolding. Imagine rowing a boat while constantly fighting the direction of the current, expending enormous energy just to stay in place, versus adjusting your direction and allowing the current to support your movement. The same muscles are involved, but the experience is completely different. One creates exhaustion and frustration, the other creates momentum. Wu Wei is about recognizing which direction life is already moving, and choosing alignment over resistance. This principle applies to decisions, conversations, work, and even inner emotional processes. Instead of forcing solutions prematurely, Wu Wei encourages patience and observation until clarity naturally emerges. It values responsiveness over rigidity, flexibility over stubbornness, and timing over urgency. Wu Wei also respects limits, recognizing that rest is not a failure but a necessary part of sustainable movement. Nature never grows non-stop. It expands and contracts in cycles. Honoring these cycles reduces burnout and restores vitality. Action becomes more precise, not less effective, and life begins to feel less like a battle. Many people have experienced Wu Wei without knowing its name, often describing moments when everything simply clicked and effort seemed to disappear. Athletes refer to this as being in the zone, where movements feel instinctive and perfectly timed, without conscious calculation or tension. The body responds naturally, awareness sharpens, and performance improves without force. This is Wu Wei expressed through physical action. Flow replaces struggle. The same principle appears in conversations that unfold effortlessly, where listening is natural, words arrive without planning, and silence feels comfortable rather than awkward. There is no need to impress or control the outcome. The exchange moves on its own rhythm. Connection deepens without effort. This is Wu Wei in communication. Creativity often depends on Wu Wei as well, emerging most clearly when the mind relaxes rather than strains. Ideas surface unexpectedly, insights arrive without force, and work progresses smoothly when pressure is released. Writers, artists, and problem solvers often notice that their best work appears when they stop trying to force results. Wu Wei allows creativity to breathe. And in that space, clarity emerges. Even basic bodily functions follow Wu Wei perfectly, requiring no conscious effort to operate. Breathing adjusts automatically, the heart beats steadily, digestion continues without instruction. Life sustains itself through intelligent movement. When attention returns to this natural intelligence, tension begins to dissolve. The body remembers how to flow. Wu Wei begins not with action, but with awareness, inviting a gentle examination of where effort feels heavy, tense, or unnecessarily complicated. This observation is not meant to judge or correct immediately, but simply to notice patterns that often go unquestioned. Where does resistance show up most often? Where does control tighten the body? Where does urgency override clarity? By paying attention to these signals, it becomes easier to distinguish between actions that feel aligned and those that feel forced. The body often recognizes this difference before the mind does. Tension, shallow breathing, and mental agitation are signs of resistance. Ease, focus, and calm energy signal alignment. Wu Wei listens to these cues. Asking simple questions can create powerful shifts without requiring immediate answers. Am I forcing this situation? Is this action arising naturally or from fear? Is this moment asking for movement or patience? These questions create space rather than pressure. And in that space, insight arises. Wu Wei does not demand instant change. It values gradual adjustment. Small shifts in direction can completely change the experience of movement. Less force, more awareness. Less control, more trust. Wu Wei exists only in the present moment, because alignment cannot be found in the past or forced into the future. When attention remains anchored in what is happening now, action becomes clearer and more responsive. The mind softens its grip on imagined outcomes. The body relaxes into its natural rhythm, and effort becomes more efficient. Breathing is one of the simplest ways to return to this state, as it operates naturally without instruction, offering a constant reminder of effortless movement. By noticing the breath, attention settles. By settling attention, urgency fades. The present moment becomes sufficient. Wu Wei unfolds quietly. Letting go of the need to control every outcome allows life to meet you halfway. Decisions feel less heavy. Tasks lose unnecessary emotional weight. Clarity arises from simplicity, and action flows more naturally. This return to presence is not an escape from responsibility, but a refinement of it. When attention is grounded, actions are more precise. Energy is conserved, and life begins to feel cooperative rather than confrontational. Wu Wei restores balance here. Imagine a river moving steadily toward the ocean, never rushing, never stopping, simply responding to the landscape as it unfolds. It bends around obstacles, deepens where needed, and continues forward without complaint or resistance. Its power lies not in force, but in consistency and flexibility. Over time, it shapes entire landscapes. This is the quiet strength of Wu Wei. Water yields, yet transforms stone. It does not argue with obstacles. It adapts, flows, and continues. Wu Wei carries this same intelligence. Soft, yet unstoppable. Life already has a current moving beneath the surface of daily events. You can exhaust yourself fighting it, or you can learn to sense its direction. Alignment replaces strain. Ease replaces exhaustion. Wu Wei does not promise a life without challenges. It offers a life without unnecessary resistance. When force is released, clarity returns. Movement becomes lighter, and life begins to flow again, quietly and naturally.